The great chamber of the Galactic Council stood silent as War Marshal Thex Kun of the Crovaxi Empire made his declaration. His 4 eyes gleamed with confidence as he looked at the gathered representatives of 40 different species. "The humans of Earth have refused our generous offer of protection," Thex Kun announced. His voice carried across the chamber through translation devices. "We gave them a chance to join our empire peacefully. They declined. Now, we will take what should be ours." An old creature in the corner stirred. It was one of the eldest minds, a species so ancient that no one remembered their true name. Its form was unclear, shifting like smoke in the dim light. When it spoke, everyone listened. "You should not go to Earth," the elder said slowly. "The quarantine around their system exists for a reason." Thex Kun laughed. It was a harsh sound that made several smaller species flinch. "A quarantine? For what? They have barely left their own planet. Their technology is primitive. They have no shields that can match ours. No weapons that can penetrate our armor." Another elder spoke from across the chamber. 10,000 years ago, we placed warning beacons around their star. We marked it as forbidden territory. You would be wise to respect those warnings." "Why?" Thex Kun demanded. "Tell me why I should fear a species that only discovered faster than light travel 200 years ago. My empire has conquered 47 star systems. We have crushed civilizations far older than the humans." The elders remained silent. They looked at each other with expressions that other species could not read. Finally, one of them spoke again. "Some doors should remain closed. Some species should remain undiscovered. We cannot tell you more. The knowledge itself is dangerous." Thex Kun slammed his armored fist on the podium. "Superstition. You hide behind mysteries and ancient fears. The Crovaxi Empire does not bow to ghost stories. If you will not give me a real reason, then I consider this matter closed." He turned and walked out of the chamber. His advisors followed quickly behind him. The other council members began to whisper among themselves. Some looked worried. Others looked curious. But the elders simply sat in silence, their ancient faces showing something that might have been sadness. 3 days later, a Crovaxi armada of 300 warships entered the Sol system. They came out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter, their massive vessels blocking out the stars. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long, covered in weapons and armor plating. On the bridge of the flagship, Thex Kun watched the planet Earth appear on his screens. It was a blue and green world, beautiful and fragile-looking. Around it, he could see the human space stations and satellites. "Send the message," he ordered. The communication went out across all human frequencies. "People of Earth, you are surrounded. You cannot win. Surrender now, and we will allow you to live as servants of the Crovaxi Empire. Refuse, and we will destroy your cities one by one until you have no choice." The humans asked for 24 hours to consider the offer. Thex Kun granted it, believing they were afraid and needed time to accept their defeat. He ordered his ships to take positions around the planet. The 24 hours passed. The human response came from their United Nations headquarters. No, that was all. Just one word. Thex Kun felt anger rise in his chest. They dare refuse? Show them what happens to those who defy the Crovaxi Empire. Begin bombardment of their coastal cities. The first plasma beams lanced down from orbit. They struck New York, then London, then Tokyo. Buildings exploded. Fires spread. Thousands of humans died in the first minutes. Thex Kun watched with satisfaction. This will teach them. Soon, they will beg for mercy. But something was wrong. The human military was not panicking. Their leaders were not calling to surrender. Instead, they were moving with purpose and coordination that seemed impossible for a species facing extinction. Deep beneath the Swiss mountains, in a bunker that could survive almost anything, the leaders of Earth's nations gathered. They stood before a massive vault door. On it were words in 20 languages. Species contingency. Protocols. To be opened Only when humanity faces extinction. The Secretary General of the United Nations placed his hand on the scanner. God help us all, he whispered. The vault door opened with a hiss of ancient air. Inside were documents, plans, and weapon specifications that had been prepared over centuries. Humanity had been waiting for this day since they first looked at the stars and wondered what else was out there. The first protocol was simple and clear. If they come with violence, show them what Earth has created in the darkness. Orders went out across the planet and to every human colony in the solar system. Secret installations that had existed for decades suddenly came alive. Weapons that had been hidden in asteroids and moons activated. Ships that had been disguised as mining vessels revealed their true purpose. Thexkun did not know it yet, but he had made the greatest mistake in Crovaxi history. He had attacked a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for war, a species that had fought itself for thousands of years and learned every terrible lesson that war could teach. The galaxy was about to learn why the elders had been afraid. And it would tremble. 6 hours after the bombardment began, Thexkun felt confident. His fleet had destroyed 3 major human cities. The primitive orbital defenses had barely scratched his ships. A few missiles here, some laser fire there, nothing that his shields could not handle easily. The humans are broken, his second-in-command reported. Their resistance is minimal. We should have full surrender within another day. Thexkun nodded. Prepare landing forces. We will occupy their major centers and establish control. This was easier than I expected. Then the moon moved. Not the entire moon, but large sections of its surface. Massive doors opened across the lunar landscape. Doors that had been hidden so well that the Crovaxi sensors had detected nothing. From these openings came weapons that should not have existed on such a primitive world. Railguns, hundreds of them, each one 3 kilometers long. They had been built inside the moon itself over the course of a century. Now they fired solid metal slugs at a percentage of light speed. The first volley hit 12 Crovaxi ships. The shields that had seemed so strong simply did not matter. The metal slugs punched through them like they were not there. They tore through armor plating. They ripped ships in half. 12 vessels exploded in flowers of fire and debris. Evasive maneuvers, Thexkun shouted. Return fire on the moon. But the railguns kept firing. And now, Mars was joining the fight. The Red Planet, which the Crovaxi had dismissed as just a small colony, suddenly launched 200 warships. They came fast, faster than Crovaxi ships could move. Their drives used technology that seemed impossible, bending space itself. Where did these ships come from? Thexkun demanded. Our intelligence said the humans had maybe 50 military vessels. His tactical officer's voice shook. Sir, they were hidden, some disguised as cargo haulers, others buried under the Martian surface, still others in orbit around the outer planets, running silent. The human ships did not fight like any military force Thexkun had ever faced. They did not form battle lines. They did not follow standard tactics. Instead, they attacked like a swarm of insects, each ship acting independently but somehow coordinated. Some ships carried nothing but missiles and fired everything at once before retreating. Others came close and released clouds of small drones that attached to Crovaxi hulls and exploded. Still others broadcast signals that somehow confused Crovaxi targeting systems. One human ship, badly damaged, did not retreat. Instead, it accelerated directly toward a Crovaxi carrier. The carrier's weapons tore into it, but the human ship kept coming. It rammed into the carrier's side and detonated what must have been every explosive device on board. Both ships died, but the carrier took 3 nearby Crovaxi vessels with it. They are insane, Thexkun's second officer screamed. They sacrificed themselves willingly. More human tactics revealed themselves. Nuclear mines that had been floating dormant in space suddenly activated, detonating among the Crovaxi fleet. Computer viruses infiltrated Crovaxi systems through their own communication networks, causing weapons to misfire and engines to shut down. Then the humans did something that truly frightened the Crovaxi. They started talking to them. Not to the commanders, but to the regular soldiers. Messages appeared on personal devices throughout the Crovaxi fleet. They were in perfect Crovaxi language, despite humans supposedly never having encountered the species before. The messages told Crovaxi soldiers about their own empire's lies, about worlds that had surrendered peacefully and were then enslaved anyway, about promises broken and populations destroyed. The messages included evidence, documentation, even recordings from Crovaxi leaders. How do they have this information? Thexkun wondered aloud. How do they know our language so perfectly? A damaged transmission from one of his data officers provided the answer. Sir, they hacked our systems during first contact. They have been learning everything about us since the moment we entered their star system. They know our technology, our tactics, our language, even our history. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, 120 Crovaxi ships were destroyed. Another 50 were badly damaged. The rest began to retreat, limping back toward the edge of the system. Thexkun sat in his command chair, wounded and defeated. His ship was one of the few still functioning at full capacity. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to organize the retreat. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We had every advantage. Superior numbers, superior technology." His science officer, barely alive in her damaged station, gave him the answer. "Marshal, I have been analyzing their tactics. They do not fight like a unified military. They fight like every battle is their last. Like everything in the universe is trying to kill them." Thexkun understood then. The humans were not warriors who had learned to fight. They were survivors who had learned to fight because they had no choice. Every weapon they used, every tactic they employed, came from a place of desperate innovation. As his ship prepared to jump to faster than light speed, Thexkun sent one final message. It was not to Earth. It was to the Galactic Council. "Warn everyone," he transmitted. "The humans are not like us. They do not fight for glory or conquest. They fight like everything is trying to destroy them. Because in their history, everything was. Their own world tried to kill them. Their own species fought itself for millennia. They learned to survive against impossible odds, and now they have weapons and ships. God help us all." The elders were right to be afraid. Then, his ship jumped away, leaving the Sol system behind. But the human ships did not stop. They followed the Crovaxi fleet into hyperspace, pursuing them back toward Crovaxi territory. The war was not over. It had only just begun. The Galactic Council chamber filled with representatives faster than it had in centuries. Emergency sessions were rare. This was only the 5th one in the last 1,000 years. The reason was simple. Humanity had left its star system and was now attacking Crovaxi territory. 3 Crovaxi systems were under simultaneous assault. The reports coming in made no sense to most council members. How could a species that had seemed so primitive just weeks ago now be operating across multiple star systems at once? "Their ships are faster than anything we have recorded," a Valanthi trade representative reported, reading from a datapad. "They are using some kind of experimental drive system that should not work according to our understanding of physics. They are not just fighting," added a Xanthir observer. "They are winning. The Crovaxi are retreating across their entire border with human space." The eldest minds sat in their section of the chamber. They had not moved or spoken since the session began. Finally, one of them rose. Its form seemed even more unclear than usual, as if it was struggling with some great weight. "We must tell you the truth now," the elder said. "We had hoped this day would never come, but since it has, you deserve to know why we quarantined Earth." Every being in the chamber fell silent. Even the usually argumentative council members stopped talking. The elders never explained their decisions. That they were doing so now meant something terrible or wonderful was happening. 10,000 years ago, we sent probes to every system in this region of the galaxy, the Elder continued. One probe found Earth. The dominant species there were humans, living in what you would call the Stone Age. They had fire and simple tools, nothing more. The Elder paused, and when it spoke again, its voice carried something like sadness. But our probes do not just observe. They analyze. They project possible futures based on evolutionary patterns and behavioral traits. Another Elder stood and took over the story. What we saw in humanity terrified us. They were persistent predators, capable of tracking prey for days without stopping. They were tribal, organizing themselves into groups that competed violently with other groups. And most dangerous of all, they were problem solvers. Every species has those traits, a council member interrupted. Why were humans special? Because they had all of them in extreme measure, the first Elder answered. And because they lived on a death world, the chamber erupted in surprised voices. Death worlds were rare. They were planets where everything seemed designed to kill anything trying to live there. Extreme weather, dangerous predators, poisonous plants, natural disasters. Most species from death worlds never made it to the stars. They died out before developing technology. Earth tried to kill humanity in 1,000 different ways, the Elder explained. Humans survived by becoming adaptable. They learned to live in frozen wastelands and burning deserts. They learned to eat almost anything. They learned to make tools from whatever materials they found. Most importantly, they learned to work together when facing extinction, then fight each other when the threat was gone. We ran projections, another Elder said. Millions of possible futures. In 90% of them, humanity either destroyed itself or died out within a few thousand years. But in the remaining 10%, they reached the stars. The Elder's voice grew heavy. And in every single future where they reached the stars, they changed the galaxy completely. Either they united it through cooperation and shared ideals, or they destroyed it through unstoppable conquest. There was no middle path. Humans were too extreme for moderation. So you quarantined them, someone said. You left them alone, hoping they would mature or die. Yes, the Elder admitted. We were afraid. We are still afraid. Because now the quarantine has failed, and we must face what we tried to avoid. While the council debated, human forces were proving the Elder's fears correct. In the Crovaxi system of Thexara, human ships had taken a different approach than simple military victory. They hacked into the planetary communication networks and started broadcasting. The broadcasts showed Crovaxi citizens what their government had done to other species. They showed the lies and the broken promises. They showed documentation of massacres and enslavements. All the information the humans had stolen from Crovaxi databases during the first battle. But the humans did not just show the crimes. They also broadcast a message directly from Earth's military command. People of the Crovaxi Empire, we are not your enemies. Your leadership attacked us without cause. They killed our people. They tried to enslave us. We have responded with force, but we do not hate you. We know what it is like to live under leaders who lie. We know what it is like to be told that violence is the only answer. The message continued. We offer you a choice. Help us remove your current leadership, and we will help you build something better. A government that serves you, not one that uses you as tools for conquest. Join us willingly, and you will be free. Fight us, and you will share your leader's fate. The response shocked the galaxy. Within days, Crovaxi colonies began to rebel. Soldiers refused orders. Entire fleets changed sides. The mighty Crovaxi Empire, which had stood for 300 years, began to crack apart. On the Crovaxi homeworld, the High Council met in emergency session. They were panicking. Half their military had deserted. Their colonies were in open revolt, and human ships were getting closer every day. We must surrender, one council member said. We cannot win this. They have turned our own people against us. Never, the Supreme Leader shouted. We are Crovaxi. We do not surrender to prey species. But even as he spoke, his own guards were watching human broadcasts on their personal devices. They were learning the truth about their empire. And they were making choices. Back at the Galactic Council, a Valanthi representative approached the human ambassador, who had recently arrived. The human was a woman named Chen, and she looked tired but determined. Ambassador Chen, the Valanthi said quietly, my government wishes to speak with yours privately. We believe we can help each other. We can. Chen looked at him carefully. Help each other how? Well, why for? The council is old and set in its ways, the Valanthi explained. Some of us have wanted change for centuries. Your people are that change. We can provide you with allies, resources, and knowledge. In exchange, we hope you will remember who your friends were. When this is over, Chen smiled slightly. We will consider your offer, but understand something. We are not here to conquer anyone. We are here to make sure this never happens again. Not to us, and not to anyone else who cannot defend themselves. The Valanthi bowed. That is exactly why we want to be your friends. Across the galaxy, other species were watching and making their own calculations. The humans had done in weeks what should have been impossible. They had broken an empire and inspired revolutions across multiple worlds. The question everyone was asking was simple. What would humanity do next? 3 weeks after the war began, the Crovaxi High Council sent a message to Earth. It was simple and direct. We surrender. Please stop. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what the humans would do. Every species knew what normally happened after a war like this. The winner took the loser's territory. They enslaved the population or killed them. They looted resources and destroyed military capabilities. That was how things had always worked. The humans did something different. Ambassador Chen stood before the Galactic Council to present Earth's terms. She was flanked by military officers and diplomats. But she spoke with a calm voice that somehow carried more weight than any weapon. The Crovaxi Empire attacked Earth without provocation, she began. They killed thousands of our people. They tried to conquer us. We responded with force because we had no choice. But now that they have surrendered, we will not become what they are. She activated a holographic display that showed Earth's demands. The council members leaned forward to read them, expecting harsh conditions. What they saw confused them. We demand no territory from the Crovaxi, Chen said. We will not occupy their worlds. We will not enslave their people. We will not take tribute or reparations in the form of labor or resources. Then what do you want? A council member asked, clearly puzzled. We want 4 things, Chen answered. First, full recognition of humanity as a galactic civilization, with all the rights and protections that status provides. Second, open trade agreements with all willing species. Third, the right to establish embassies and diplomatic relations across the galaxy. And fourth, the Crovaxi will pay reparations in the form of technology transfers and educational exchanges. The chamber erupted in confused voices. The eldest minds, however, remained silent. They understood what the humans were doing, even if others did not. A Crovaxi representative, one of the few who had been allowed to attend, stood up slowly. You defeated us completely. You could take everything. Why do you only ask for knowledge and recognition? Chen turned to face him directly. Because we do not want your systems. We want to make sure this never happens again. Not to us, not to you, not to anyone. The best way to do that is through understanding, not through conquest, she continued. We have studied your history. Your empire was not always violent. It became that way because you were attacked centuries ago and barely survived. You decided the only way to be safe was to be the strongest. We understand that fear. But we also know It creates a cycle. You attack others because you are afraid. They fear you, so they attack you. The cycle never ends. The Crovaxi representative sat down slowly, his expression unreadable. Over the following months, human ships did something that shocked the Crovaxi people even more than their military victory. They brought aid, medical supplies, food, technology, to help rebuild the cities that had been damaged in the war. They brought teachers and engineers to help repair infrastructure. On the Crovaxi homeworld, a former soldier named Krevax stood in a hospital that had been rebuilt by human engineers. His daughter had been sick, and the human doctors had saved her using medicine that the Crovaxi did not have. "Why do you help us?" he asked the human doctor. The doctor, a man named Rodriguez, smiled sadly. "Because we have been where you are. In our history, we fought wars that killed millions. We know what it is like to hate. We know what it is like to lose people we love to violence. And we learned that the only way to break the cycle is to choose something different. But we were your enemies," Krevax insisted. "Your leaders were our enemies," Rodriguez corrected. "You were just following orders. We know the difference. Besides, your daughter did not attack anyone. She deserves to live, regardless of what her government did." Stories like this spread across the former Crovaxi Empire. Slowly, opinions began to change. The humans were not conquerors. They were something else, something new. Meanwhile, Earth was receiving secret communications from other species. Some were asking for help against their own oppressive governments. Others were offering alliances and trade deals. The Valanthe Confederation formally proposed a mutual defense treaty. In the Galactic Council, the balance of power was shifting. Species that had been silent for centuries suddenly had opinions. The old empires that had controlled the council for millennia found themselves facing questions they could not answer. "Why did you never help us when we were oppressed?" a representative from a small species asked the council leaders. "The humans barely know us, and they already offer more assistance than you have in 1,000 years." The council had no good answer. 6 months after the war ended, the first human embassy opened on the council homeworld. It was a simple building, designed in a style that blended human and alien architecture. Above the door was a plaque with words in 30 languages. "We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves and others. Let no one forget either truth." Ambassador Chen held the opening ceremony. Representatives from 40 species attended, more than had ever come to a new embassy before. Even some of the eldest minds were there, watching quietly. "This embassy represents a promise," Chen said to the crowd. "A promise that humanity will be a partner in building a better galaxy. We will share our knowledge. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. We will stand against oppression wherever we find it. And we will never, never start a war without cause." She paused, then added with a slight smile, "But we will always finish the wars that others start against us, or our friends." That night, in secret chambers across the galaxy, leaders of old empires held worried meetings. 3 civilizations that had ruled through fear and military might were now facing internal rebellions inspired by human ideals. Their subjects wanted democracy. They wanted individual rights. They wanted to be free. The Xanthir Dominion, which had kept its population under strict control for 800 years, saw protests in its capital city. The protesters carried signs with slogans in their own language, but the ideas came from Earth. Government serves the people, not the other way around. The Krath hegemony, a military dictatorship that had conquered 12 neighboring species, watched as those conquered peoples began coordinating resistance. They were using communication technology the humans had shared freely. The galaxy was changing. Some saw it as progress. Others saw it as chaos. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity had emerged from its quarantine, and nothing would ever be the same. In the council chamber, an elder spoke to its companions in private. "They are doing exactly what we feared, and exactly what we hoped. They are changing everything." Another elder nodded slowly. The question now is whether the galaxy can survive the change, or more accurately, whether the old order will allow the change to happen peacefully. If they resist, a third elder said quietly, the humans will not stand alone. They are building alliances faster than we thought possible. The first elder made a sound that might have been a sigh. Then we must hope the old powers are wise enough to adapt, because if they force a confrontation, I do not believe they will win. The humans have shown us that much. The galaxy trembled, caught between the past and an uncertain future. And at the center of it all stood humanity, ready to defend their vision of what civilization could be. 2 years had passed since the HFY War ended. The galaxy had changed more in those 2 years than in the previous 1,000. 3 major empires had collapsed, not from human military action, but from internal revolutions. The Xanthir Dominion fell first, when its own military refused orders to fire on peaceful protesters. The Krath hegemony fractured into 7 independent states as conquered species broke free. The Melvani Collective, a corporate oligarchy that had controlled its people through economic slavery, dissolved when workers organized strikes across all its planets. In each case, the pattern was the same. Human ideals spread through communication networks. Ideas about individual rights, democratic government, and freedom. The oppressed populations learned that another way was possible. They saw what humanity offered and asked, why can we not have this too? With 370, they won he 70. Earth never sent soldiers to support these revolutions. They did not need to. They simply shared information and provided refuge for those who fled persecution. That was enough. The Galactic Council met less frequently now, and when it did, the old power structures were barely recognizable. New species had joined. Former slaves who now had their own governments. The eldest minds still attended, but they spoke even less than before, watching humanity's experiment with what might have been approval or concern. It was hard to tell. Ambassador Chen, promoted to Secretary of Interstellar Relations, now coordinated Earth's diplomatic efforts across 40 systems. She sat in her office on the Council homeworld, reviewing reports when an urgent message arrived. It came from the Outer Rim, a region of space the Council barely monitored. Scout ships had detected something terrifying. A species unlike any encountered before. They called themselves the Hive. Though, themselves, was not quite accurate. They were one mind, controlling billions of bodies, and they were consuming everything in their path. 12 systems had gone silent in the past month. When investigation teams arrived, they found dead worlds stripped of all biological matter. The Hive left nothing behind, except empty cities and bare rock. Chen brought the information to the Council immediately. She stood before the gathered representatives, her expression grim. We face a threat that does not negotiate, she said. The Hive does not want territory or resources in the way we understand. It wants biomass to grow. Every living thing in its path becomes part of it. If we do not stop it now, it will consume the entire galaxy. The council chamber filled with worried voices. Some called for immediate military action. Others wanted to retreat and defend their own systems. A few suggested trying to communicate with the Hive, despite evidence that it did not communicate. The debate went in circles for hours. The council could not agree on anything. Some species did not trust others enough to coordinate. Old rivalries and fears prevented unified action. The system that had governed the galaxy for millennia was failing when it mattered most. Finally, Chen stood again. The council is paralyzed, she said bluntly. You cannot make a decision fast enough to save the civilizations in the Hive's path. So Earth will act alone if necessary. An old council member from a species that had ruled for centuries objected. You cannot take military action without council approval. It violates all protocols. Chen looked at him steadily. Your protocols are letting people die. We will not stand by and watch. If the council will not lead, then we will. She turned to leave, But the Valanthi representatives stood quickly. One by one, other species rose. The former Crovaxi colonies, now independent and democratic. The liberated worlds of the old Krath hegemony. Small civilizations that had never had a voice in the council before. Within minutes, 30 species had pledged their support. The old council members sat in stunned silence. They had just witnessed the birth of something new. A coalition of free worlds, united not by council authority, but by shared values. 3 days later, a fleet assembled at the edge of Hive space. It was the largest combined military force in galactic history. 300 human ships formed the core, but they were joined by vessels from 20 other species. Each ship bore the symbol of the new coalition, a circle of stars around a clasped hand. Admiral Marcus Chen, the ambassador's brother, commanded the human forces. He stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the tactical displays. The Hive was consuming a world called Parathi, home to a peaceful species of farmers and artists who had no military to defend themselves. All ships, this is Admiral Chen, he broadcast to the fleet. The beings on Parathi are asking for our help. They cannot fight the Hive alone. So we will fight for them. We will show the Hive that this galaxy is defended. We will show it that life here fights back. All vessels, prepare for combat. The fleet jumped into the Parathi system. What they found was horror. The Hive had sent thousands of bioships, vessels grown from living tissue rather than built from metal. Each one was a part of the greater Hive mind, coordinating perfectly with all the others. The battle began immediately. Hive ships did not maneuver like normal vessels. They moved like a swarm, overwhelming targets through sheer numbers. But the coalition fleet did not fight like normal forces either. They used the tactics humanity had developed against the Crovaxi and shared with their allies. Coordination without rigid command structures. Adaptability over fixed plans. Innovation over tradition. Each species contributed their unique strengths. Valanthi energy shields, human railguns, Crovaxi armor, and weapons from a dozen others. The Hive was powerful, but it had never faced an enemy like this. It was one mind trying to control billions of bodies. The coalition was billions of minds choosing to work together. The difference mattered. The battle raged for 18 hours. The coalition lost 40 ships and thousands of crew members. But they destroyed the Hive fleet completely and saved Parathi. The grateful survivors sent messages of thanks across every communication channel. After the battle, Admiral Chen sat in his quarters, exhausted and mourning the losses. His second officer, a Valanthi named Kareth, came to speak with him. "We won, Admiral. We saved them." "At a terrible cost," Chen replied. "Too many good people died today." "Yes," Kareth agreed. "But they chose to be here. No one forced them. They came because they believe what your species has been teaching. That we have a responsibility to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Chen looked at him. Kareth nodded. "Before I met humans, I believed in profit and survival. My people were traitors, nothing more. But you showed us that there is honor in standing for something greater than ourselves. You showed us that strength can be used to protect instead of to conquer. Many species are learning this from you." Back on the council homeworld, the eldest minds met in their private chambers. They spoke in their ancient language, discussing what they had witnessed. "They are reshaping the galaxy according to their ideals," one said. "Democracy, freedom, mutual defense. These concepts are spreading like fire. Is this what we feared?" another asked. "Or what we hoped for? Perhaps both," a third elder replied. "They are dangerous because they are changing everything. But they are doing it with principles, not just with violence. They could have conquered half the galaxy by now. Instead, they are building alliances and defending the weak. The old order is dying," the first elder observed. "The council as we knew it cannot survive. Too many species now question why they should follow rules made by empires that never protected them. Then what comes next? Whatever humanity and its allies build together. We can guide them if they ask, but we cannot control them. That time has passed. Perhaps that is for the best, another elder said. We maintained stability, but we also allowed injustice to continue because change was dangerous. Humans have shown us that sometimes change is necessary, even when it is dangerous. On Earth, in the UN headquarters, Secretary Chen addressed the assembled representatives of humanity's nations. Behind her was a holographic display showing the coalition's territory, growing slowly as more species joined. We did not ask to become leaders in the galaxy, she said. We only wanted to be left in peace. But when we were attacked, we showed our strength. And when others asked for help, we could not turn away. Now, we have a responsibility. She paused, looking at each representative. The galaxy is watching us. Some with hope, some with fear, some with suspicion. What we do next will define not just humanity's future, but the future of countless other species. We must be wise. We must be just. And we must never forget why we fight. We fight not for conquest, but for survival. Not for glory, but for peace. Not to dominate others, but to ensure that no one is dominated. This is the path we have chosen. It will not be easy. We will face threats like the Hive again. We will face opposition from those who prefer the old ways. But we will face it together with our allies. The representatives voted unanimously to continue humanity's leadership role in the coalition of free worlds. Across the galaxy, in 1,000 different languages, on 100 different worlds, people spoke about Earth and humanity. Some praised them. Some feared them. Some questioned their motives, but none could ignore them. The galaxy trembled, balanced between the old order and the new. And at the center of it all stood humanity, carrying the responsibility they had not sought, but would not abandon. They had been attacked and had shown their strength. Now, they would show the galaxy what they could build with that strength. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in millennia, it was also full of hope.